Join us and unwind with a good book. Welcome to Relaxing Reads.
Hi, it's Deb in Halifax.
Hi, it's Simone in Vancouver.
Hey, it's Tanya in Edmonton.
Our latest read, Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, is about a lonely shopkeeper, Vera, who takes it upon herself to solve a murder in the most peculiar way in this captivating mystery by Jesse Q. Sutanto, best-selling author of Dial A for Aunties. When one thinks of an ideal amateur detective, none of Vera Wong's qualities, like tampering with evidence and romantically setting up two of her suspects together, would come to mind. But when the tea shop owner who watches an unhealthy amount of NCIS suddenly finds a dead body in her shop, she believes she's the only one who can solve the case. Nobody spills the tea like this amateur sleuth in this comedic mystery. Well, was it, ladies?
Yeah.
Everything you hope for a dramedy mystery with a senior sleuth taking the lead?
I loved it. I loved Vera. She was there were so many points in this book that I was reading it and laughing out loud because I just think that Vera was just spot on with so many things. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Part of the reason I wanted to choose this for our book club was I'm a fan of Jesse Q. Sutanto because we had read Dial A for Aunties, and that was like a fun comedy. And when I saw that she was working on this and it had been acquired by Warner Brothers to become a television show and Mindy Kaling and Oprah were backing it, I was like, okay, this has got to be a book that's got a bit of interest to it if there's already networks securing the rights to it. So, I didn't know what to expect, but it's like if you've got that seal of approval from Mindy Kaling and Oprah, then it's definitely going to be an enjoyable one. And you can totally, see when you're reading this, how it can translate into a series because the lead is just so fascinating. And there's not often a lot of leads where you have, an elderly person leading a book. Not that I've read. And so the wisdom she brings, how she keeps her youthfulness, the way she lives her life. She was a fascinating character to follow along. And she just is so funny because she says it like it is. And that's the part I really enjoyed.
Me too. The meddling. I don't know that Vera would be Vera if she didn't meddle in somebody's life.
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Do you guys know of Vera? Was she somebody that perhaps you might have in your life, do you think?
I don't have one currently in my life like that, but having grown up on a farm in a very, very small community, there were definitely what I would say the busybodies of the community, and they knew about what was happening with every single family in the community. And it's just like the whispers. And we used to have a post office at the general store. So of course that was sort of the hotbed of gossip. All you had to do is tell Mrs. Vincent what was going on in an hour. It was all across the community. And it's like, we didn't have a town. We're talking just farms at that point, right? So I guess the focal point, the post office, everybody goes to get their mail and everybody talks and has a coffee. And oh, yeah. Yeah, so I definitely know that type of person from growing up. But it is kind of endearing, though. Meddling, but I think Vera's, meddling, but in kind of an endearing way. And I think there's so many themes about this book. And I think, one of them is kind of loneliness and also connection with family. And as you get older, you may lose a spouse, you may lose people. And then if you don't have that purpose and all of that, it can be a very kind of solitary existence. And I think a lot of that was sort of, I thought with Vera, in that nobody was going to the tea shop because nobody didn't know about the world famous Vera Wang tea shop.
I know.
So I thought she was just, she's meddling because she's like, she's lonely. She's lonely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that was really sad when she still had such a passion for her tea and she wanted to be there and keep it open. And her son didn't really believe in her. And there was just no excitement in her life. And she was trying to make it exciting. Like, she's getting up, she's doing her thing, she's still living her best life and living it as good as she knows how to in her routine. And she wants to stay sharp. She wants to stay focused. So I think this a dead body showing up in her tea shop was the best thing that could have happened. Because, when you just need a little bit of excitement, well, that's one way to get it.
Oh, for sure. Oh, my gosh. I can't imagine living in a community without that type of character. I mean, sometimes it might be a bit much, but like you, Tanya, growing up, in a farmland community where somebody always knows something and you can, get on the horn and ask them and they might have the information you're looking for, good or bad, I suppose. But yeah, I think she was really trying her best to still be who she was in her own character. And perhaps she, she probably should have bitten her tongue along the way in a number of incidents. But then I think she found herself again with this particular incident. And I think that spunk that perhaps was missing came back, and she felt that there was a purpose again, even if her tea shop wasn't doing so well. And perhaps, the relationship that she was lacking with her son, she gained in this new group of friends. In a very odd way.
Well, that was beautiful because she created a family, and it was under weird circumstances, but it just shows you if you give a little, you can receive a little. And from there, it's just, it snowballed into this beautiful thing. You didn't know which way it was going to go, but she had a passion again for her tea. She had a passion for making big meals, but she had nobody to cook for anymore. And she really wanted people to be fed. She wanted people to experience things. And it's interesting how she pulled all these incredible things from these suspects we were introduced to and helped them realize what was missing in their life. They all kind of rediscovered what was missing. And it was interesting how the story weaved together in that way. That was not something I was expecting from this book at all. Even when you read the write-up, you think, okay, it's going to be some kind of a cozy murder mystery with this fun character. But the way it all kind of interweaved together was really well done, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, and I didn't know either, Simone, sort of how this was going to go. I was thinking, okay, we've got these suspects in the murder. They show up at the tea shop, and it's going to be one of them. So you kind of go as a reader, who did it? Who did it? You get these little tidbits where oh, I think it's that person. Oh, I think it's that person. And I love the way the way Jessie kind of broke up her book into all the different characters and their own thoughts. So Vera was definitely the narrator of it, but I really loved how we got inside all of the characters and all of the suspects, as Vera said. I mean, I loved. There's so many parts about each of those characters that I really loved reading about. And I was kind of thinking, well, she couldn't have done it. Could she? Or did he do it? And so you're kind of left guessing throughout the whole book. And in the meantime, you're like, no, that can't possibly happen. So I loved reading about all of these characters. I'm wondering for you guys, did you have a favorite character that you really kind of related to?
I think there was something about Vera herself that I connected to. And Simone, as you were talking about, the family dinner and how interesting it is, over the years, families hope to have everybody sit at the table and gather around and hear the stories of the day or the week if it's a Sunday dinner, and the importance and purpose of that. And she brought it all together. When you serve somebody food, when you create food and give that gift in some form, it creates something quite unique, I think. And a lot of people like to have that today, but because of busy schedules, they can't. And here it is that she's creating this, and people are opening up.
I felt like when she was making those meals, and even her thought process in creating the right tea, I was like, I could smell what she was cooking, even though I didn't really know what it was. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can totally smell this. I really want to dive into the book and eat some of this food. And just her thoughts on, making the tea. She made this special tea for the police officers, right? And then they didn't even have any. And she's making, I just thought how it's interesting that the author went into such detail about the tea making, about the meals. And I really kind of gravitated towards that. I really wanted to, like I said, dive into the book and actually sip some really yummy tea and have some of the food that Vera was so lovingly preparing for everybody.
I know. And I'm a coffee drinker, but this book has me wanting tea because, even she says herself, coffee is just boring. With tea, there's a way to concoct different things and you sip it. And like the tea for the cops, I think it was meant to help them focus on the investigation.
Yes.
And, the tea she would make for Alex was a little bit different. And then for each of the suspects, it was like what they were lacking or what they needed. And so she had a way about it, and it does fascinate you. And with the food too, it was also like having this tea, having this food that fuels your body. It's truly taking care of yourself, because we do live in a busy world where sometimes we're eating out more or not really thinking about what food we need for ourselves or what our body needs. So that was an interesting way to kind of look at it too. And you think, as Deb, you were saying, we're so busy now. Like I don't often sit down as much and even have dinners with my family, because the kids eat at a different time. We eat a little bit later. And so there's something missing, because those dinner conversations is where you truly can have the phones down. You can look at each other and really have those important and good conversations. So it's a good way to kind of take what happened in this book and start thinking about ways to reapply that back into life. And I think getting that wisdom from an elder is when you start to think about these things, because when you're younger, you're in the chaos of just life and work and kids, you sometimes forget about taking those small pauses and those moments. And you realize when you're older what they mean.
Yeah, a lot of mindfulness within, eating the food and consuming the tea with Vera and her new family.
And also Vera, she is witty. Like she is just her
Isn't
thoughts.
she?
You get to know her. She's like, and she's constantly, making comments about the young people. I love this one thing that I read. She goes, well, this one about young people, but she gets up at 4:30 a.m. and goes to bed at 8:30, and she just tells herself, go to sleep. I'm like, I so wish I could tell myself just to go to sleep and it'll happen, because it doesn't. So she says, she feels that sleeping in is for toddlers and Europeans. I'm like, I love that. Toddlers and Europeans. And it's just like, she talks about, she thinks that life would be so much simpler if everyone simply said what they were thinking. And I'm like,
yeah,
that is so true, because we kind of beat around the bush sometimes about what we say. And it would be a lot simpler if we just sort of cut to it and went right, said what we wanted to say. Yeah.
And her comments.
Wise.
Yeah, she was very wise. And I loved her relationship with 2-year-old Emma. I just love that dynamic.
Yes.
But it was, when Emma was like, what's a dead body like? And she's kind of like, how do I explain this? Well, it's like a human body, but dead. And I was like, well, that's true. And when she was like, she went off in the tent and she started singing, she's like, yeah, she's not a very good singer. Or when she was said to Ricky, oh, yeah, you wouldn't have been able to do it. You don't have very strong arm muscles. Like things like that. It was just the bluntness.
Yeah.
She was so candid. Like I love that about her.
But I noticed that with my mom. My mom's 66, and I've noticed through the years she does not hold back. Sometimes we'll be somewhere and she just says what she wants to, and I'll say, Mom, you can't just say that. Like, if we're like, she can just be rude, and sometimes she doesn't think about it. And I'm like, is this what they talked about in this? Like, you just think about, like, as you get older, you don't hold back. Like, sometimes you're so afraid of hurting someone's feelings. But then when you've lived life and you've been through these experiences and they shape you, you just say it. There's no time to wait to say it. You're not like, oh, wait, 20 years to tell this person what I think. You just say it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, you've got to say it, because then the moment is lost. And I think with my mom as well, and some of my older relatives who've said a few things, and then if you try to explain or maybe take them down a different route to avoid what may have already been said, they just give you that look. And then oh, right. Oh, just be quiet. You're not the elder here in this situation. Let them be, and it's okay. Just let that pass.
Simone, I'm with you on seniors, and they just, say what they want. I so want to get to that place. I want to be able to just go, blah, here you go. I just said it. Yes, I did. Hopefully it'll be like 20 more years before I get to that point. But I love Vera's sort of like, shh, she just says it. Like, one of the I found so many great things, likable things about these characters. And I think one of the ones that I sort of, I was kind of torn between like Sana, I think that's how I said her name, sort of this struggling artist. But I really loved how the author talked about like her mom was this best-selling author, right? And was really pushing Sana to be the artist. And she was like, you have to be thankful that I'm not pushing you to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. Like, I'm supporting your art. And poor Sana was like, she was blocked and she couldn't do her painting. And there was that one scene towards the end of the book where, like we've talked about earlier, how Vera helps people in this uncanny way of knowing just how to push the right buttons to get these people to sort of unblock themselves. And she does it with all the characters, but with Sana, she gives her that 3-foot stick and she says, here, go draw in the sand. You know, it doesn't matter. The waves will wash it away. You can just draw to your heart's content. And I love that scene of helping Sana kind of realize her potential. And of course, we learned in the book why Sana was blocked, but that's a whole other story. You got to read the book.
Yeah. It is interesting how she was able to, dig deep or allow them to dig deep into whatever might be happening within themselves. And they felt comfortable enough with this stranger who had, some other ideas about why she, initially wanted to gather them around. But interesting how that type of character, if it's not somebody that you know, and she's so blunt and so like, I don't know, harsh, I guess, not soft, but that how you felt comfortable enough to release and open up or be so open with her.
And I think it was just her presence. I think they all knew that she was a meddler and she was a bit out there, but with Ricky and he was missing kind of that mother figure, and so was Oliver, and so I think they saw that. And then with Julia, she was at a time when she was lonely and life was overwhelming, and she has this toddler, and then you just have this mother/grandmother show up who's cleaning your house, taking care of your child, your home, and then same with Sana. It's like she's got this mom who kind of puts that pressure on her, and Vera's taking the pressure off. So it was like they kind of were like, okay, it's kind of weird that we get texts from this Vera woman and she's telling us what to do, but we kind of need to stay in her good books because she might go to the cops and we might all get in trouble and get ratted out. So let's just do what she says. But at the same time, when they all kind of walked away from her and then she got sick and they all went back, it was that moment where they are realizing that, wow, we've actually built this relationship with her, just how she is. And they all needed each other.
And it was at that point, Simone, that when everything kind of blew up and Julia kicked her out of the house and then it was like, 3 days before they went to her shop to find her. And when they found her and she was like just so tiny, this woman who's like so full of life and strutting around like just like nobody's business. And then she just sort of like imploded, and it just broke my heart because I'm like, she lost that connection again of feeling useful, of being a part of something. And she felt that everybody had just sort of pushed her away. And, that was hard. But then, it kind of goes around where they are helping her or they're redoing her tea shop and everything for her. So it gets better. But it's at that point of she just deflated from lack of life, lack of, being part of something. And I just thought, that's so sad of what happened to her.
I know. And that's why they say check in with your elders or, people in your family, because we get caught up in the day to day and sometimes a day passes by or you don't, connect like with me, with my mom. Like she'll send me like a little WhatsApp photo and we kind of communicate through pictures. We'll say hi or we'll check in. But, you've like sometimes I'm like, you got to pick up the phone and just call, have a conversation. We're not just going to text today. Because when you look at your life, if you're so busy and crazy, there's someone else who is wanting that attention from you, and they might be lonely and they might be waiting for it, but they don't want to burden you and be like, oh, I need you. I'm needy for your time and your love. But it really just puts things into perspective because, she had a moment where she didn't get checked on for 3 days and thankfully she was okay. But it's a scary thought.
Yeah. And when you see somebody or know somebody who is such a powerhouse like her and they're always go, 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 and whether it was just a few days or a few months or a few years, when you see them in a different light, in a different shape, a different view, like they saw her, then you do have to take a step back and think, oh, wow. I mean, she put so much into caring for us, and all we had to do was, drop by or pick up a phone, and things can change quite quickly.
I know. I think about like my dad, because my mom has passed now for like 10 years, 11 years. So crazy. And, Dad's on the farm, and I know he has a full life. He's taken up fiddling. He's doing all this stuff. He's a very busy guy. But I know, when I go home to visit and I walk into the house, it's like silence. I don't know. And I have to remind myself that with my busy life and all that, that I do need to stop. And I need to pick up the phone like every week and just check in on him and just for the conversation. I think that's what he misses the most, is like sitting down at the table with his coffee and having a conversation, because that's what him and Mom used to do. And I think that's one of the big things that he doesn't have. He can go out to get conversation, but it's those quiet moments at home. And I think that's something that, for myself, I have to remember those quiet moments and reach out to him so that he knows that I'm going to get emotional. It's so that he knows that he means something, that he's not just sitting there on the farm and his kids are all, everybody's all gone living their lives. And it's just important to make sure that he knows that he makes a difference and continues to make a difference. And I get busy and sometimes I go like 2 weeks and then I get anxiety about phoning my dad, because I'm like, oh, geez, Tanya, gosh, just pick up the damn phone, But I guess maybe this book is going to, kind of tells you to not be so busy and just take the time.
Yeah, because on their end, they're like, how busy can you be to pick up a phone and talk for 30 seconds? And you just, really, you've got that little bit of time in your day, but we do. Sometimes we don't prioritize it. But again, books like this are always a great reminder. And just you kind of do a little check-in with yourself. Did you guys think the suspect was who you thought it was going to be? Because that
yes.
You did? You figured it out?
I figured it out. But what I didn't know was that it was Alex, the friend that she gave tea to, who had his wife was sick, right? And you find out all about this at the end. I didn't figure out that Oliver and Marshall's dad. I knew it was their dad, but I didn't know that their dad was Alex.
Oh,
that was the twist.
Yeah.
So
that was the twist for me.
How did you come to that, though? How did you know it was their dad?
I don't know. I have, because she kept saying, there was like a one point when they were on the beach and they saw a figure looking at Emma.
Oh.
And then there was a point too, probably towards the end of the book, that I kind of went, I wonder if it's their dad. Because you hear about the dad and then Oliver tries to go see his dad and he's like, go away.
Yeah.
I thought that there was a reason why the author had the dad in the background.
Oh, interesting.
So that sort of made me think that,
good.
there might be there's a reason why she introduced him.
Tanya is good. I remember when she joined this book club, she said she was good at figuring this kind of stuff out.
Yeah. I'm not so good. I had all kinds of thoughts. I mean, when they did go to the door and he didn't want to see them, I thought, well, that's bizarre. But I didn't put two and two together until it was almost, there it is. Okay. I got it now.
But the thing about Alex, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she weaved it all back together. She weaved these two characters that were sort of outside the story, Alex and Marshall and Oliver's dad, and she put them together. I'm like, I love that.
So do you think
that was surprising? Yeah.
Now that we know Alex doesn't have a wife, is there a shot for him and Vera to be a part of this big family?
I wonder.
Find love again and have this little happy family.
I think we need to ask the author that.
That's a good idea.
Right?
Yeah. This is a great little book. This is a great, it had me entertained. And I loved how we got into each character's heads and and it just flowed. Just like one chapter to the
did.
next, to the next, to the next. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I
Great
think
book.
it was like, I think there are probably a lot of little messages, but I think it's, again, pause, take a moment, breathe, and enjoy the simple things in life. But also give everybody a chance, no matter their character, because they all had their own quirkiness. Vera, I think, the most. But it's interesting once everything, unravels and we learn a little bit more about why they are who they are at the present time and how things kind of came to be. I think she did a bang up job.
Yeah, and it's always like we're all human, we make mistakes, but there's always room for redemption. So,
Yeah. And I think that our readers will find in this book, they're going to love just the quips that Vera just out of nowhere just goes, blah, here we go. She just says what she thinks. And I think one of the things that there's so many, I wrote down a bunch of stuff that I just loved, but I love this one because often we think that destiny is sort of like, okay, it just sort of sits there and we eventually figure it out. But Vera thinks that destiny is something to be hunted down and grabbed tightly with both hands and shaken until it gives you exactly what you want. I'm like, hallelujah there, Vera. I love that.
Yeah. And what I want,
Let's not wait for destiny.
No, I want us all to discuss even more with Vera in her tea house.
yes. Oh,
I would love to be there. I would love if there was a shop like that, if it actually existed.
I'd like to be in San Francisco. I mean, having been,
Well, there
I'm
is
sure you
that
guys
too,
have been
yeah.
to San Fran. It's like so many streets that they were talking about in the areas. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've been to San Francisco. I need to go. And I need to go to Vera's shop if it exists.
Or find the French bakery that isn't a French bakery.
I know. Oh, I love
She was
Winifred.
always ripping that bakery apart. But it was Winifred who came to check in and
right.
see
Yes,
what
it
was
was.
going on. Because
Yeah.
again, that sense of community, even if your arch nemesis is operating next door, you kind of still have this, hey, wait a minute, we're still in this little community together. Is everything okay? So that was kind of nice. And yeah, it looks like Vera Wang's world famous tea house is open for business. Here we go. This is the perfect time to speak with the author of Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, Jessie Cute Sutanto, who joins us now on the podcast. Chatting with her all the way from Indonesia. Hello, Jessie. How are you?
I'm good. I just got my kids out the door. I was like, maybe I should go back to sleep. But yeah, I'm good.
I was recently, just a few weeks ago, in Bali, and I was in the airport, and it was so nice to see so many of your books on display.
Oh, really? Oh my God, that makes me so happy to hear.
Yeah, because the last time we chatted with you, we had read Dial A for Aunties. We love that book. And so you were kind of on the path of creating another Aunties book. There was 4 Aunties and a Wedding. And then the next one was going to be Aunties, the 3rd installment. But then Vera came along. So tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
So I just had kind of the nuggets of an idea. I wrote the back cover blurb as a pitch, and I sent it to my agent. I was like, oh, when do you think I can write this? Because like you said, I was supposed to be writing Aunties 3 and 4. And she was like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe sometime next year you could write it, but let's see what your editor says. So she sent it to my editor. And then before I knew it, they were like, let's push Aunties 3 back. And let's come out with Vera Wong first, because we're so excited about it. So that was kind of how it all got started.
Now, when it comes to Vera, what a character. Was there somebody you had in mind when writing about her?
Well, I always say she's 80% my mom and 20% my dad. So all of the things that she says, I don't even have to make them up, because that's what my parents say. All of the very random, if you sleep after 9 p.m., You'll have liver problems, or I don't know, just very, very random things. So I always just think like in every scene, I'm like, oh, what would my mom do? Or what would my dad do? And then sometimes I knock it up a notch, I'm like, okay, let's make it more dramatic. But they're mostly based on my parents.
That's funny. And with Vera, she had such a great knowledge of pop culture. Many parents and grandparents are trying to keep up with the young generation. Why did you feel like that was important to write about as well? I know there was that line that she was squinting her eyes like Shayna from Love is Blind, and I love that.
Oh my gosh, so that one was just a joke because like I'm so obsessed with Love is Blind. And I kept expecting someone like my agent or my editor or the other editors to be like, hey, why is this in here? But no one did. So then that line remained. And then I saw it on the Love is Blind Reddit. And I was like, yes, I've made it now into the Hall of Fame. So that was just me having fun. But I do think it's funny because like my parents, they downloaded TikTok before I did. And then they were like telling me, like get on TikTok. There's like so much good stuff out there. By good stuff, they really mean like faux medicinal advice, that they then like pass on to us. Like, oh my God, like when COVID happened, they were like, drink boiling water. And I was like, how do you drink boiling water? And I don't know, but we saw it on the TikTok. So I just felt like Vera had to, be very tech savvy like they are.
Yeah, and that was the other part about this, just all the descriptions around the tea. So do you have a vast knowledge of all different kinds of tea, or how does that come to be? Because it made you want to have a cup of tea with Vera every time she boiled a pot.
So my maternal grandfather, he was very traditional Chinese. He was very adamant that his granddaughters should know how to like properly brew Chinese tea so that we could serve our husband. I've never like made tea for my husband and, poured it for him. I think if I did, he would freak out and he would be like, is this poisoned? But I did grow up like learning all of that stuff about tea. So yeah, I was very happy that I could finally, show off my very useful life skill about making tea.
We were discussing earlier during our chat, Tanya and Deb couldn't be a part of the interview, but just how interesting the story was. You have this elderly woman who has this strict regimen and she's up at the crack of dawn. She's making her tea and then she meddles in this murder mystery, has this list of suspects. She becomes friends with them and, they learn a little bit something from her. But then there's the twist. You really don't know who the murderer is till the end. But the story kind of all just weaves together. So what did you kind of have in mind when writing about that and giving the characters like their own thought process that we could learn from them as opposed to Vera just sharing the story?
So I knew that I wanted to have 4 or 5 suspects and I knew that I wanted it to be like a multi point of view story, mostly because I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine a whole book written from Vera's point of view. Like, I feel like it would be so exhausting. And I was like, okay, so then I have to give each one a motive. It broke my brain writing this because up until then, I had never written a mystery before. Like Dal A for Aunties, I know sometimes it's shelved under mystery, but it's really not a mystery because you know who did it. And I had never done anything which was like, oh my gosh, who did it? So it was so complicated. And while I was writing it, I kept wailing like, whose stupid idea was it to write this book? And so it was quite the adventure writing all of their points of view.
What would you say was your favorite kind of scene or moment in the book?
So I would say my favorite moment was the end of Sana's character arc when she, picked up the paintbrush and she started drawing again. I actually got like really emotional and like teary eyed because I just see so much of myself in her, but not with art, but like with writing, with like getting blocked or just feeling like you're unable to write or whatever. And so when she finally overcomes it, then I was like, oh God, yes, good job, Sana.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty incredible. And I also loved the moments between Vera and Emma. I thought it was so sweet. She was just so funny with her. And, there's that line where she's like, what does a dead body look like? And she was kind of like, it's a human body, but dead. Like, it was just kind of, like funny, and how she would make comments about how she shouldn't sing or how Ricky wouldn't have been able to do it because of his muscles. So it was really entertaining to read. Now, Warner Brothers TV has acquired the book rights to this novel. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh my gosh. So it was a ridiculous and crazy process because it was already on auction. Different studios were already bidding. And so I thought, okay, well, so these are all the bidders. But then all of a sudden, my film agent was like, by the way, I think we need to pause the auction because Oprah and Mindy Kaling read it and love it, and they want to come in with an offer as well. And I was like, what? And I remember it because it came in at around like 6 a.m. my time. And I was making lunch for my kids. And I can tell you now that like that was the worst lunch I had sent them to school with. I think it was like I threw in like bread and then noodles or something like that. They came home and they were like, Mama, how come you gave us, this and this and this for lunch? It really was not good.
You were like, Mom has other things to deal with. That is huge news.
Yeah, I kind of like shouted a little when I saw the email, and then my kids were like, what is it? What is it? And I was like, you won't get it. You won't get it. Because they're like 4 and 7. They don't know who Oprah and Mindy Kaling are.
That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, it was insane. And the moment they were out the door, I sent my agent an email. I was like, oh my God, what is happening? So then we set up a call with their teams. So I didn't actually talk to Oprah or Mindy. And they were just so amazing. It was all women. They just really got the story, and yeah, I mean, I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. I thought nothing could top Netflix, but I was wrong.
Yeah. So what's the update on the Netflix?
So Netflix, they have a script. It's finished. I haven't read it yet, so I'm really nervous. But they say like Netflix really likes it. They're still editing it. So I can't wait to read it. Or do I want to read it? I don't actually know. Maybe I don't want to read it.
You just want to see it.
Like, be kept in the dark until suddenly there's a movie out. So
amazing. And so what do we have to look forward to next? When is Aunties 3 coming out for us?
Oh, yeah. So Aunties 3 will come out in spring of next year. I just recently released my first adult suspense. I'm Not Done With You Yet. I think that came out last week.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm very excited about him. I'm like, I keep reading the reviews for it, and it brings me so much joy whenever I see someone is like, guys, this is not like the Aunties or Vera. This is not a feel-good book. So, but yeah, I'm really enjoying that.
Amazing. Well, we all really enjoyed this one. We're going to have to even go back and read Four Aunties and a Wedding because we never read that one. But we are big fans and, thoroughly enjoyed this book. And thank you for being a part of our podcast and answering some of our questions.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for your patience and thank you for having me.
Thanks again. And thank you for listening to the Relaxing Reads podcast. Until we are back with you, have a great day.
Thank you for kicking back and relaxing with us. We hope you'll join us again on Relaxing Reads.